As governor, Michael Dukakis vetoed mandatory sentences for drug dealers. He vetoed the death penalty. His revolving door prison policy gave weekend furloughs to first-degree murderers not eligible for parole. While out, many committed other crimes like kidnapping and rape, and many are still at large. Now Michael Dukakis says he wants to do for America what he's done for Massachusetts. America can't afford that risk.
Professor Irwin Corey.
Class, we eat waffles for breakfast, but in politics, a waffle is when you can't make up your mind. We wear these flip-flops around the pool, but in politics, a flip-flop is once you stop waffling and make up your mind, you change your mind. Here is the master of the waffle and the flip-flop. He's done it on taxes. He's done it on the seatbelt law. He is Mr. Waffle Flip-Flop.
In TV commercials, you have a sort of in a compact form, all that is wrong with a television politics. Obviously, there is no time for the discussion of anything, or the clarification of anything, or the presentation of any rational idea. I mean, to some extent, someone's going to say for sure that politics has always had an element of the irrational. I agree. What I worry about is that this now, television, intensifies and amplifies the irrational element, that it becomes difficult to find any piece of it that's rational.
The western state of Wyoming in the 1970s was the scene of the next great leap forward in TV propaganda. The consultant responsible was Robert Goodman.
We believe, and I think most of our competitors and most pollsters believe, that voting is an emotional act. It's not a reasonable act. Our mind justifies our feelings.
With a crowd of friends and
Goodman was employed by a wealthy Wyoming landowner called Malcolm Wallop, who wanted to be a senator. Goodman polled the Wyoming voters to try and discover the weak spots of the incumbent senator, Gail McGee. But there was a problem.
Gail McGee was, according to our polls, correct on every issue. We had no issues to run on, really.
With no issues to run on, Goodman sought inspiration for a new approach from the Wyoming countryside.
I sit in a dark room, I close my eyes, and I try to hear it, I try to feel it, I try to almost like hypnotize myself into the mood. I'm trying to capture Wyoming.
Goodman thought of horses, cowboys, and a rousing campaign song.
Here comes the Wallop Senate Drive, the Wallop Senate Drive. It's alert and it's alive, and it's Wyoming to the spur, the Wallop Senate Drive. Now, I had a lot of trouble selling the line spur, but I finally prevailed on it. I said, now listen, I do the music, let me alone. But that's the only time I really put my foot down. But I had a tough time selling blind. Wyoming to the spur. I thought that said it all. To me.
Come join the Wallop Senate Drive. The Wallop Senate Drive. It's alert and it's alive. And it's Wyoming to the spur. The Wallop Senate Drive.
Go forth for Wyoming, Malcolm Wallop. Tell them in the United States Senate that the people of Wyoming are proud of their land and life, and that a Wyoming senator will fight every intrusion upon it. That you, Malcolm Wallop, will serve the nation best by serving Wyoming first, the very special needs of this great state, and by so doing, share its blessing with America.
Come join the Wallop Senate Drive, the Wallop Senate Drive.
Malcolm Wallop for United States Senate. Ride with us, Wyoming.
The image projected by that ad was essentially a deception. It was inaccurate because Malcolm Wallop is not what he appeared to be in that ad, or at least he's other things besides what he appeared to be there.
Malcolm Wallop wasn't really a cowboy, though, was he? Well,
He was a rancher. There was a little stretch there. He raised polo ponies. He was Yale educated.
Malcolm Wallop, who was elected by Goodman's ads, is an unlikely cowboy. He's a millionaire businessman, was born in New York, and is descended from the Earl of Portsmouth. But to Goodman, such details are scarcely relevant.
That's what a political campaign is an entertainment to a large degree. And I thought of political campaigns as dramas. And I saw that they were no different from a play, except that these were real actors and actresses on the stage.
The presidential election campaign of Ronald Reagan in 1980 was the next logical step in TV entertainment propaganda, since the candidate was an actor. And just as in a Hollywood film the audience is often unaware of the influence of the producer, so in this election campaign, the voters were unaware of the influence of Ronald Reagan's own political producer, his communications advisor, Michael Deaver.
I understood that the American public was getting all of its information about its candidates from television. So I really dedicated all of my time to being sure that all that space around the head was filled with something that was going to be pleasant and entertaining.
The 1980 Reagan campaign resembled a TV entertainment, and it worked. Once in the White House, Deaver carried on producing Reagan for TV. And it didn't take him long to work out the best way to deal with the White House correspondents.
These people, you see, actually have talked themselves into believing that they're in the news business. But they aren't in the news business, they're in the entertainment business.
The boring setting of the White House briefing room was hardly suitable for presidential entertainment spectaculars.
So Deaver would always find a place. He'd go out and he'd say here, and he'd check such mundane details as where is the sun, what is the backdrop, where will the cameras be placed. But Deaver had more skill than that. Like any good producer, he not only brought Ronald Reagan to a stage, but he had props on the stage. For instance, at Normandy, at the point where the Rangers scaled the cliff on D-Day, Pont de Hoc, Deaver found a place where Ronald Reagan could stand with the dagger symbol behind, that is the monument there. And the cameras were there. And I was covering it. Tears came to my eyes, and that doesn't happen very easily. Deaver had it planned perfectly.
Intent. Every move had been carefully choreographed.
Stand over there, Mr. President.
White House advance men rushed in children to wave goodbye to the Reagans.
This particular event took months of time, picking all these spots. We walked the beaches to be sure that we had the exact visual that we wanted. We knew exactly what was going to appear on camera at each time. Those producers from NBC, CBS, and ABC had been working with us from the very beginning. They would have worked with us as we choreographed, if you will, that entire 2-hour ceremony.
At a cemetery where 9,000 American...
The President of the United States, of course, will always be a major story every day in this country. Remembering that he will always be a major story, it was my job to be sure that that was a story that we created.
Deaver prided himself that no matter what the story, he could always devise a visual.
Deaver was a genius at being able to manipulate and work with television news before television news really understood that they were being used in this way. for a while, I think a lot of people were manipulated very willingly by Michael Deaver and the Reagan administration because they knew television wanted pictures.
Deaver could control the TV pictures of Reagan, but he couldn't control Reagan's words, so he simply cut journalists' access to question the president.
And we would shout at him in the Rose Garden, or we would shout at him as he went to the helicopter. This, of course, was no substitute for the kind of questioning that should have gone on a daily basis.
Donaldson became famous for shouting out questions during photo opportunities. Some TV viewers thought he was being rude. What they didn't know was that Donaldson was forced into these impromptu interviews because Deaver wouldn't let him properly question the president.
I'm not going to answer that question.
It was very frustrating for those fellows whose contracts depend upon how many times they get on television every night. And yes, the president was not available every night for them, but they could get their questions answered by me or Jim Baker or the press office or anybody else.
Reagan's 1984 re-election campaign was a triumph for Deaver's approach to propaganda.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
When we ran the re-election of Ronald Reagan, the Democrats never got their act together, so we had springtime in America all the way from May to November.
But the dark side of the Deaver style also flourished in 1984, for this was an election in which Ronald Reagan held a grand total of one press conference. No American president in the TV age has answered fewer questions from journalists.
But what you were seeing, because we are television, was this smiling, genial grandfather figure, this John Wayne character, and you were not hearing a thing I said, because when the eye and the ear conflict, the eye always wins.
Wasn't that part of the agreement, sir? Mr. President, I think it's a photo opportunity. I don't think we got to take it.
But if a Deaver gives you only pictures that show morning in America, your complaint that beneath the morning there's an open sewer is going to be lost. No one pays attention to the words, just the music.
It's morning again in America. Today, more men and women will go to work than ever before in our country's history. With interest rates at about half the record highs of 1980, nearly 2,000 families today will buy new homes, more than at any time in the past 4 years. This afternoon, 6,500 young men and women will be married. And with inflation at less than half of what it was just 4 years ago, they can look forward with confidence to the future.
What is it that the Republicans are doing? They're connecting to the very basic values, the food values, the job, income, marketplace values, the prime value, the sex, family, stability values, and making sure that those values are covered in their communications and in the symbolic content of what they do.
It's morning again in America. And under the leadership of President Reagan, our country is prouder and stronger and better. Why would we ever want to return to where we were less than 4 short years ago?